Welcome to OkState Daily. Casey Porter here, joined by Chase Witwiska. Chase is a longtime coach. He is the owner of the Oklahoma Express. That is an organization that plays big-time baseball. He has coached different sports. He has played every single sport as well. So welcome in, Chase. I'm excited to get your thoughts today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to, usually we do this a little earlier, but I felt like I needed some time to really sit and stew on what happened last Saturday, man.
Of course, it's a bye week, but give us your raw emotions at this moment.
Man, I like I said, it was a lot of time to sit and think because we didn't do it immediately after the game. But, man, I'm just still dumbfounded at how poorly they've played up to this point, honestly, except for the second half of Arkansas. Man, I haven't really been impressed with them at all, and it's been very disappointing because there was so much hype going into the season with 20 guys coming back as returning starters, and there's college football playoff hopes and Big 12 championship hopes, especially with Texas and OU gone now, and man, they just found a way to royally screw it up. I mean, I don't know how else to put it.
So to you, which part of it has been more frustrating, the play on the field or the fact that you just don't feel like you're getting any answers from him?
Knowing his personality, it's not really surprising. He's outgoing to his players, but to everybody else, he's kind of an introvert almost. So I'm not really shocked, and I wouldn't say it mad about it. I'm more mad at the two coordinators, and I'm more frustrated with the play on the field than I am anything else. And I think that he's in a spot now too, to where he's at a loss for words because I think if you set him down and talk to him at the beginning of the year and really try to get him to spit out the truth. I think there were high expectations for this team, not only for the fans, but for him as well. Like I said, you've got a Doak Walker award winner coming back. You've got a starting quarterback back that's been in the offense for a year, and he's just progressively gotten worse. You have one of the best receiving corps in the country. You had a lot of hype around your O-line. All of them coming back, and it's just been really, really bad. And I think that he's in a spot now, too, to where he's like, the heck happened? How is this going on?
For us diehards, is it as upsetting to Mike Gundy? Is he as upset right now with OSU football and as disgusted with the way it's going as the fans are? That'd be my question.
To me, I think that when you look at his post-game interviews and stuff like that, you can sense a bit of frustration there. So I do think he's frustrated. I don't think he doesn't care by any means. Because if you listen to kind of the tone of his voice and you look at his mannerisms and his body language and stuff like that, he's pissed. He's not happy. And I think you've started to see a version of him lately to where it's like, he is starting to kind of call out the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, and right, wrong, or indifferent, with him being the head coach.
Don't call him out. Let him talk.
Right.
That'd be my point to that.
Yeah, I mean, and they should be able to. They should speak for themselves. They really should, because it shouldn't be on him, on Mike, and he's putting it on himself. But it shouldn't be on him to answer for every single thing that's happening. Because yes, he is the head coach. But you also have to have trust in the people that you hire. And you use the Express as an example. With me running that, I own it, and yes, I run it. But I have to put trust in my coaches that I hire to do the right thing and do the right job. I can answer for just about anything, but it's going to be hard for me to answer because I can't be involved with all 6 teams that we have, and for the same thing with him, he can't be totally involved on the offense, totally involved on the defense, totally involved on special teams. That's a tough position. And I don't think that people really realize that until they're in that position as a head coach. And you're well aware of it as well. The people that you hire, you have to trust them to do their job. And if they're not doing a good job, it all comes back to make you look bad. Not necessarily them, but it's like, oh man, to heck with Porter. Oh, to heck with Witwiska. They don't know what they're doing. When in reality, it's just you have to come to terms with, shoot, dude, I messed up, and I've got to make a change, not only to help the people around me, my players, my fans, the things like that, but man, I'm taking a lot of heat for a bad job that I'm not necessarily doing. So I want to play devil's advocate, but at the same time, he is the head coach, and he does have to make tough decisions, and I think those tough decisions are going to have to come sooner rather than later.
I guess that would take you to the next step, and I am in this boat. I think Mike Gundy can be a micromanager, both on the offensive and defensive sides of the ball. I think he pins his coordinators into a certain playbook. I think he pins them into, here's what I want you to do, here are the plays that I want you to run. Be the coordinator within this structure. I think he pins his coordinators on both sides of the ball into that box. What would you say to that?
I don't know. I really don't. Because if it's hard to say, especially because I feel like he's a good offensive mind. I really do. And had he not been a good offensive mind, he wouldn't have been I don't think good quarterbacks, that he was a great quarterback. I don't think a good quarterback is necessarily dumb when it comes to offense. You can't be. And in terms of defense, I think he should know how to read a defense and how to break down a defense because of that quarterback position. That's an important part of being successful at playing quarterback at that level, is you have to understand defenses. Don't take this in any kind of way that I'm putting him in this category. Alan Bowman has Ollie Gordon. And I'm not saying by any means that Ollie Gordon is as good as Barry Sanders, because Barry Sanders is one of a kind. Yeah. But I would argue that he's still one of the best backs in the country. He just hasn't been as productive, and I think that's due to bad scheme. I think
he's to blame too. I just don't think you can take this off of Ollie. I think when you look at different things he can do to help himself, whether it be vision, whether it be busting it through the hole, or whether it be just different things. I'll put it to you that way. I just think I don't think you can just wash your hands of all of this not being on Ollie.
I've gotten past that point. Yeah. I've wanted to constantly defend him. I still love him as a player. Yes, I really do.
Oh, we all love Ollie. Yes.
One of my favorite players to watch. He's a lot of fun to watch. It's been hard to see him struggle, especially with the hype around him. I don't think the scheme is helping by any means.
I don't disagree with you. He just doesn't do well with struggling. I'll put it to you that way.
No, he doesn't, and that comes in putting myself in a player's perspective. That comes with. I've got high ambitions for myself, and I have I think that I can do a lot of good things. When I'm not performing, it's frustrating, and I get that, and I can get that to an extent, but at the same time, he has to realize kind of who he is, and he is the spotlight of Oklahoma State football right now. I think that he's done a good job of kind of coming to the times and rolling with the times, because if you go back to it, he was not a big fan of everything that's happening in college football. And now he's starting to talk about it like, hey, I've got to learn. I've got to figure this stuff out. I've got to make it work. What's best for us as a team, what's best for the university, all this stuff. So I do like how he's come along there. But at the same time, man, it's going back to last Saturday, it's so frustrating to see the outcome of what this whole season has been so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if I were to ask Chase Whitwiska, of course, we all want some change, whatever change that may be. We've addressed that many different times. What change is it that you would like to see?
Offensive coordinator, I feel like has to go. I don't think that he's had 5 years. You think it's
right now, this week and the bye week, somebody else is calling plays from now on for Oklahoma State?
I don't think it's ever healthy to fire somebody mid-season. I don't. I don't fully agree with it, and I don't think that there's always light at the end of the tunnel when you do that, because when you do that, the entire offense that you've installed and everything like that, some things have to change, because that is Casey Dunn's offense. But I think at the end of the year, that change has to be made.
See, I would challenge that. I would say it's Mike Gundy's offense, and I think he says that as much. And hey, we've been running these plays. This is the same offense we've been running for years. Now, you can't always take Mike. Sometimes he's playing the coach speak, right? But in those situations, I take him verbatim, because I think these are the plays we've been running for years.
But then if that's true, then why do we not have the personnel groupings to fit this style of offense? Because this style of offense has to have a mobile quarterback.
Because they're recruiting the best talented player they can find, and not necessarily a player that fits the offense, because they need at least talented players. They're having a hard time recruiting. The recruiting rankings would tell you that. So when you get an Ollie Gordon, or you get a raw talent, even though he's not necessarily a zone back, you go get him because he's the most talented running back you can get. and therefore you're always trying to. I think that's part of the problem. You're always trying to put a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I'm more so referring to the quarterback. He does not fit this offense whatsoever.
But I think he was the best one you could go find in the transfer portal, and we didn't have another one. The way Spencer Sanders left, it would not surprise me at all if it was difficult to find another quarterback in the transfer portal. Man, you know how that network goes. You know how those kids are networked.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And how he left wasn't necessarily. It wasn't good for either side. And from my understanding, he came back, and it was after he went in the portal and was like, hey, man, I want to come back. And I don't blame Mike Gundy one bit for saying no.
None.
I don't, because if you don't want to be here, pack your bags and get out. I don't want to deal with that.
Especially when you're in a leadership spot like quarterback. At right guard, whatever, okay. But when you are the leader of the team, you got to be a little bit more convicted than that.
How are you going to get your teammates to rally behind you?
Right, correct.
Knowing that, man, I went to find greener grass and I couldn't. And I props to Mike Gundy for saying kick rocks, in my opinion, because yes, he was a talented quarterback, and yes, now we're in a terribly tough spot. However, I don't think I would have been okay with Spencer Sanders leading Oklahoma State's football team, knowing that he tried to find something else bigger and better. And it ended up biting him in the butt too, because he kissed his NFL career, any chance of that, goodbye, because all he did was back up Jackson Dart at Ole Miss. Well,
and I think probably too, from the personal side of things, it's just not a good look. I don't think these kids realize that. Whenever it looks like you are not going to be committed the second that it's not working out for you, I mean, even if that's not your intention, I just don't think that's a good look.
And kids don't think that like that.
I mean, it hasn't been around long enough for that kind of to play its course, and for kids to see that.
Right, you're right. And I'm around these age of kids every single day. I mean, every single day up in Enid, and them going through the recruiting process and stuff like that. You really try to pick their brain and figure out where their thought process is and how they're thinking. Because sometimes how they're thinking is not realistic. Yeah, I mean, let's just be honest, and I don't mean that in any kind of rude way.
1,000% correct.
But I don't look down on people for thinking a little bit more highly of themselves or having higher expectations. But a sense of reality also has to set in at some point. I can't, and this is just an example. We don't have somebody like this, but I can't tell a coach. I can't call a coach and say, hey, man, Josh Holiday, I've got an 82-mile-an-hour lefty that plays for me. He's a 2026. I think you should take a look at him. When a kid comes up and tells me, man, I want to play at Oklahoma State, I'm like, did you throw 82 from the left side? I love your ambition, but that's not realistic.
Not at this moment.
No, it's, and maybe later on down the road. All that to say, I'm going to be honest, I don't think Spencer Sanders was an SEC quarterback. I don't think that his goals were realistic in terms of what he was trying to accomplish. I don't think that was a good fit for him. I don't think that was a good fit for really anybody, because I don't necessarily know how great he was in the locker room knowing that he had Jackson Dart starting over him.
So where are we at with Brian Nardo? I mean, I'm disappointed in the way this year's gone. I do think this guy is excellent with X's and O's. I think I can't for the life of me figure out why we're playing defense the way we are structurally from an X and O perspective. I've covered that several different times. When you look at Jim Knowles through about this part of his career at OSU, his defenses were terrible too, right? And so we held on to him, and then as he went further on, he got better. I think Brian Nardo is a good young coach, but he's given up 700 and some odd yards a game every single week. And we're not stopping anything. We're not stopping the run. We're not stopping the pass. There's just literally nothing we're doing good. So where are we at with Brian Nardo?
You said he's a good young coach, and I would agree with that. But he's not a good young coach for a Big 12 football team. That's my personal opinion. I think that he would be, and I'm not downgrading any school when I say this, but he probably should have started out at a South Dakota State if he was going to go to a Division I level. I don't think that going into a Power 4 conference with a top 25 caliber team year in and year out was the best decision for him and the best fit for him. He needed more time to learn how Division I works, because at the Division II level or whatever he was at, those coaches, and again, I'm not downgrading them, but those coaches aren't at Division I's for a reason. You're facing the best of the best in college football. when you're at that Division I Power 4 level.
Sometimes it's just opportunity. Who you know?
It is, but what I'm saying is I understand why he jumped at this, but I don't understand why we jumped at this.
Right. Having said that, we did, though. So where are we at right now is kind of what I'm saying. All of that did happen. He is at Oklahoma State, whether that was a good thing for him, whether that was a good thing for Oklahoma State or not. It's the fact. It happened. He is our defensive coordinator. So what now? I mean, what do you do with him?
It sucks to say, but I think this is another decision, the tough decision that you're going to have to make, and you're going to have to be willing to spend some money and go find somebody that's experienced and has shown.
Mason.
Well, yeah.
Jim Knowles was this bad at his time in his career at Oklahoma State.
But was he 700 yards a game bad?
The defense was bad. That year we went to Kansas and gave up 1 million different points and all that. Yes, his first defense and a half was pretty bad, yeah.
This would take some research, but I would want to go back and look at the players that he had on the roster, who all he had returning. Because what I see with Nardo is he's had the same defense for 2 years, like almost the exact same defense. Granted, injuries happen. Yes, same personnel, and it hasn't gotten any. There hasn't been any improvement, and in my opinion, it's gotten worse since last year. You know, and that doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand how you can continually fail and almost progressively get worse with players that have been in this scheme for 2 years now. I mean, there's no excuse for that.
Yeah. Sounds to me like you're saying that you think that Coach Nardo has a chance to be a really good coach, maybe even at this Division I level, but that Oklahoma State doesn't have the time to allow him to develop into that coach.
He needs to go somewhere that's that doesn't have the opportunity, at least right now, to compete in the top 25 teams in the nation. And I'm not saying he needs to go somewhere that traditionally has not competed at this level for the last 10, 15 years, in my opinion. In conference, but go to a Kansas, go to somewhere that hasn't seen a ton of success and see what you can do and figure it out. But I think we're wasting our time with what we've been able to do in the last few years in terms of being a nationally recognized brand at that point. We don't have time to groom coaches, in my opinion, if we want to maintain this. And the other hard part about it is with the transfer portal, kids look at success. Kids looking at what did this team do last year? God, this defense gave up 700 yards a game. I ain't going here. I don't want to play for that coach because I'm not going to be put in a good position to hopefully get to the next level.
You are a college recruiting coordinator, correct?
Right.
At NOC. I mean, that is your job, right?
Correct.
So you know how these kids think.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I know exactly how they think. I'll use us as an example. We won a national championship in 2019, so we have that working for us. Had we had 5-10 years of just bad baseball, you know how hard it's going to be to recruit and to get kids to buy into you and say, hey, you got to trust me. I'm going to develop you. I'm going to help you get to the next level. No, you're not. Your tradition doesn't show that. Your success rate doesn't show that. You're giving up 13 runs a game when I'm recruiting a pitcher. You're giving up 13 runs a game. How good are your pitchers? How good are you at developing pitchers? Dude, you're only scoring 2 runs a game. How good are you at developing hitters? You average 3 errors a game. How good are you at developing infielders or outfielders?
Right.
I mean, all that goes into play, and as it should. The kids should do their research and go to where they feel is best fit for them and where they're going to find success. If they don't think that they're going to find success, then they're probably not going to go to you. Well, I mean, let's just be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also, I think sometimes – I mean, they can hit it off with maybe a player on the team. Or I know I was talking to Mark Moore, and he really liked Rod Brown and Ernest Anderson. So I think that can play a big part of it, too. Like if a linebacker comes and it's hosted by Nick Martin or Jeff Robertson, and they're like, oh, man, dude, this, I know we gave up some yards, but Coach Nardo's the bomb or whatever. I think that can play a factor, too. And then also I think if they like their position coach, I was talking with Tracy Moore, and he just absolutely loved Casey Dunn, and that was a big part. Darius Bowman, too. He loved Gunnar Brewer. And so, he loved Gunnar Brewer so much he actually followed him from North Carolina to OSU. And he went to North Carolina because of Gunnar Brewer, then followed him to OSU because of him as well. So I think you can also – I think that's another reason why you have to have coaches. That's another part of the standoffish personality with Gundy. I think also you have to have coaches that these kids really relate with and that they like. You have to have that. That's one thing I think Brian Nardo does have going for him, as he is of that age. He has that type of personality where the kids like him.
Yeah, but at what point, I'm playing, I'm just trying to spitball here. At what point do you, I have a great relationship with this guy. It's just going to, but I'm not succeeding here. And I've got to look out for me and mine at this point. That is what college athletics has come to. It's not about loyalty to the school. It's not about loyalty to your team. It's not about that anymore. It's about it's really become junior college altogether, in my opinion, because I'm in that game now. And in junior college, you go to junior college to get out. You go to Division I and play at a high level in Power 4 to get out and go to the NFL. You're always looking for bigger and better. And if you put yourself in this position, I'm at Oklahoma State, I'm a sophomore, and I'm playing on a bad defense, but I think I'm pretty good. Why don't I go somewhere that's been better? Yeah, why don't I go down the road to, and this is just an example, why don't I go down the road to Oklahoma, where Coach Brent Venables is making a phenomenal defense? Why don't I go there and get better there instead of stay here and continually fail?
Yeah, I would totally agree with all that. So, hey, Chase, final thoughts on all this deal. You have the bye week, and then you go to BYU next Friday. That's another daunting thing, because BYU is just really good. Jake Retzloff is a really good quarterback. That's a crazy good environment there in Provo, Utah. So final thoughts.
I want to be optimistic, but I don't want to be unrealistic and be a homer. It's going to be a tough one. It's going to be tough to win that one. Yeah. Let's be honest, and I want them to win, and I hope, I'm going to cheer them on and hope that they win. But I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to be shocked if we lose. Mm-hmm. Provo's a tough place to play, and it's a Friday night. It's going to be crazy. And BYU is a good football team. They're a good football team, and right now, Oklahoma State's not a good football team. Mm-hmm. Let's just be honest. They are not a good football team. They don't have a which I hope they change the quarterback, because there's no need to play a seventh-year quarterback at this time.
Seventh-year player.
No, because at this point, it is preparation for next year.
So would you rather miss a bowl playing your younger guys?
I would.
Or make a bowl playing your older guys?
I think making a bowl at this point, unless you're in the 12-team playoff, I think making a bowl is completely overrated.
Or maybe not. Maybe even irrelevant. Yeah.
It is, because what's going to happen, even if you make that bowl, those NFL potential guys, so you look at Ollie Gordon, you look at Brennan Presley, you look at Rashad Owens, and those are just to name a few. If I was them and I wasn't competing for a national championship, I wouldn't play. Absolutely. I'm
like
just going to be honest.
Guys didn't last year.
Exactly, and that's why that's why we did what we did. But if I'm them, I wouldn't want to play for the Independence Bowl. What does that mean? And I get it.
Pride for your school, the school that's the theory is the school that's given you so much, you're giving back to them for as long as you can. That's the theory. You're playing with your teammates, your buds, one last ride together, that kind of thing.
Which I love that, and I wish that was still how college athletics worked, but it's not. You have to change with the game, and at this point, like I said, it's become, how do I get me in mind? How do I look out for myself? How do I get myself to the next level? And how do I keep myself the healthiest and make myself look the best? At that point, I wouldn't be, and I don't think this is going to happen, seeing his personality and stuff on the field. But there's a chance that Ollie Gordon played his last plays at Oklahoma State last week.
That wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me, and I hope it's not true. And I like I said, knowing the relationship that he has with Presley and guys like that, I would think that he would want to continue to play, because I do think he enjoys playing. But at the same time, he has his sights set on bigger and better things, and rightfully so. He's a great football player, and I think he's going to be a good NFL back. And if he doesn't stay healthy, what's going to happen to his draft stock? It's probably not helping itself right now. Let's be honest. I
don't think it'll help his draft stock if it's perceived that he quit on his team halfway through the season for selfish reason. I think that would hurt his draft stock as much as any nagging injury would at that point. But that may just be me having an old-fashioned viewpoint at it.
I just like with the newness and the recruiting process and all this stuff, the kids and the process and everything like that have changed so much to where I don't know how much it really is going to affect them, because what they care about in the NFL is how are they going to perform at this level. You know,
I think they want guys that know how to handle adversity, that don't want to quit on their teammates the second that something gets difficult, because I mean the NFL is a hard sport, man.
No, I agree, and I think that they do, but I think that it goes that now I'm going into positions, but I think they look at, like, if you take a quarterback, for example, I think they would take that into more consideration than they would a running back or a receiver.
That makes sense.
Because the running back is not, I mean, in most cases, it's not going to be the leader of that NFL football team. He's not, I don't know how many running backs, if any running backs, have a C on their jersey standing for captain of their NFL team. I don't know of one. I could be wrong. That's not where we're at today in athletics, period. So...
All right, man. Hey, this was a good conversation. It was a little bit more laid back than what we've had the last couple of days, which is nice, because I think I've been so frustrated that it's actually worn me out. I think I'm kind of tired of it at this point. So this has been a good conversation, Chase. Thanks for joining. Great job.
Absolutely.